Hello, so this is the last section for people in organisations for Unit 2, and it's actually the last section for people in organisations from the whole course as well. Unfortunately, I would say that this is the most boring part of the course. Whenever I teach this part, maybe I just need to make it more fun, but it's just one of those areas with a lot of information to learn. However, students often don't learn this area very well, and so they perform quite badly on it in exams. So if I were an examiner, I would definitely ask a question based on this because it really tests a lot of students. So it is boring, but very, very essential to understand the basic facts. So it looks like a lot. I'm just going to jump into it because it makes it a little bit shorter as a video. So key definition here: an organisational structure shows the lines of authority and communication between the managers and the workers. So here is a typical diagram, and we can see there's a person at the top, maybe our CEO or managing director, and then directly beneath them there are two people, maybe two different departments or sections of the business. Below them they seem to be jointly managing this person here, and then you can see these lines showing who's in charge of who and who should be communicating with who and what departments they're working in. So this one looks like a whole department here. Maybe this is human resources, maybe this is the marketing department, maybe this is the finance department, and so on and so on. Okay, so the benefits of having an organisational structure and people that you are meant to report to and are your line manager and they're going to do your appraisal with you, it's really very clear who's responsible for each department, so who's in charge, who's the leader, and it's clear who the workers should be taking their instructions from and the leadership from, and it also makes clear who works in what department and what work they're responsible for and how many layers of management they have. So this is a key term: layers of management or layers of hierarchy are the number of different layers of management there are from the person that's at the bottom of the organisational structure to the person that's managing. So here, if I get out my pen tool, sometimes it's a bit temperamental, my pen, it doesn't want to come out. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers of management or hierarchy to get from the bottom to the top. And we look at two different types of structure on the GCSE course: a tall organisation or a tall structure. So this is an example of one where we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 layers of hierarchy to get through. Now there's no kind of standard definition of what means tall. Tall just means that there's a lot of layers of hierarchy, whereas this one is called a flat organisational structure and it has 1, 2, 3. So compared to the one on top that has 8, this one would definitely be considered flat. But this one that has 8, there are organisational structures out there that might have 15 layers of hierarchy, and then, that can be considered relatively flat. But it's so just bear in mind there's no like standard definition of how many layers you have to be tall and how many you have to be flat, but it's just in comparison to each other. So another key definition that you need to know is span of control, and this is the number of people that a manager is directly responsible for. So we have two different types of spans of control: wide spans of control. So we can see that this manager here, this is the manager, is directly responsible for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people. So they have to manage, do appraisals with, check the work of 9 other people, whereas this is a narrow span of control because they only have 2 people to supervise. So this is the important part. A tall structure tends to have a narrow span of control so you can see here in all of these diagrams, each person, each manager is only managing 2 other people beneath them, whereas this structure, a flat structure, tends to have a wide span of control. So flat and wide usually, and tall and narrow in terms of spans of control, so they do actually go with each other. So here's my table that I made earlier. This is about the benefits, problems and appropriateness narrow and tall structure and wide and flat structure. So in terms of this first one, the narrow and tall structure, it is easier to control and supervise because of the narrow structure. You're only supervising here 2 people rather than a lot of people here. However, there's a lot of layers of hierarchy to pass information through. So if the CEO is sending out a message, but it has to go through all of these people here to get down to this person at the bottom. Well, you know what happens with the whispering game, where you send off a whisper in one direction, and by the end of passing through 10 people, it distorts and it ends up being something completely different. And with gossip, that kind of thing happens. So there's more chance of miscommunication when you have more people. Remember, miscommunication is a type of diseconomy of scale as well. So that's the problem of getting too big when an organization gets too big. And you also need more management as well, because there are narrow spans of control. So each manager only has a few people that they manage. So you tend to get more layers of hierarchy, as I said before, with a narrow span of control. And that's very expensive because you're paying people to manage. And managers tend to get paid more than the workers. However, it's quite appropriate where there's lots of unskilled workers, because these unskilled workers would need quite close supervision. So that would tend to be a good structure. And it could be quite motivational as well, because there's lots of opportunities for promotion here. You can see, going up all the way to the top. However, benefits of a flat and wide span of control: quicker communication than tall, as in fewer layers of hierarchy, less chance of miscommunication as well, less supervision needed, so possibly more democratic decision making happening. Possibly it could be quite motivational as well. These people at the bottom maybe get more time or more ability to go and speak to the person at the top as well if they want to. They might feel more involved in decisions. However, this person here might be quite stressed because they've got a lot of people to manage. But it would be very appropriate for businesses where they have lots of skilled workers. So these workers here would need less supervision than, say, these workers here. So that would be very appropriate where people are quite self-motivated and they can get on with the work themselves. Okay, another section that you need to learn is about centralization. Centralization is where senior managers take all the important decisions, and decentralization is when decision-making power is delegated to managers in different branches. So this is really when we're thinking of like multinational firms. So they don't just have like one shop. You have like head office, and then you have firms based, shops. I'm thinking of retail, based in the UK, based in France, based in America, based in Japan. So centralization, we're thinking of big businesses here where you have like a head office making all the decisions. Decentralization, you have more power pushed down through the hierarchy to those different areas. So here's one I made earlier again. In terms of centralization, it's quicker decision making because there's fewer people making the decisions. All decisions are going to be made by the headquarters, HQ. Okay, so fewer people to make the decision, quicker decision making. Also, once the decisions are made, this is pushed down the hierarchy, the organisational structure. So every department will be following those instructions. So they're kind of doing all a uniform thing. They're all going to be doing the same thing. Disadvantages of that is there's no input from other areas of the business. So remember that democratic management style, you can get some really good ideas, so you're going to miss out on that. However, it's going to be really good in times of crisis because of the quick decision making. And it's really good when you have to have a very consistent and similar service for every single shop that you have, or part of the business or department. So in terms of, McDonald's, when you walk into a McDonald's in Manchester, you want it to be very, very similar to walking into a McDonald's in London. You want the service to be very similar, the food standards to be very similar. So this would be, quite a centralized structure where headquarters are making the decisions about what products are going to be in the store because you want consistent service. Now, there is a little bit of maybe decentralization in terms of there's a bit of differentiation between the menu that's in the UK and the menu that's served in, say, France or Greece or Japan. I'm just thinking of different McDonald's I've been to. I know in Greece they do a Greek salad, and in Japan I think I went to my McDonald's there, and it was similar. You know, you can get Big Mac, but they had other things on the menu that they didn't have in the UK. So there's a bit of decentralization there, and what we call like a localization rather than globalization. Benefits, problems, appropriateness of decentralization. If you're giving more responsibility to different departments and different areas of the business, that could be very motivational. Think back to that motivational video that I made. However, decisions made by some departments might not bear in mind the other parts of the business. So a decision made by, if we just stay on the theme of kind of McDonald's Japan or something, say they think, right, you know what, we've got to reinvent this whole brand and we're going to make it look really, really different because it would really suit our market. Well, it could be good in that market, but it could also cause problems for the brand and the brand identity all over the world, because when you're working in a specific department or a specific store, and if you're a manager of that store, you're going to make decisions based on what's best for that store only, whereas the headquarters will be thinking about making decisions that are going to help the whole of the business. So those things might not be the same. The decisions you make might not benefit other parts of the business. It might even damage other parts of the business. However, it's good where these departments or sections of the business work in very different markets and you need more tailoring towards the customer's needs. So you want decentralization when you really want to tailor the products in certain areas. Maybe it's like geographical areas, you're trying to tailor what's on offer. And we certainly see this a little bit more in shops, where we have slightly different things in different department stores depending on the local market and those types of things. But it's debatable how much the managers in that store have actually decided. But it can be. A lot of businesses do try and make it a little bit more decentralized because it can be so motivational for those people that work in those organisations. Okay, I hope that hasn't been too boring, but the good news is that is all of human resources, as I call it, or as the textbook calls it and the specification calls it, people in businesses. That is all of that section done, so you don't need to do that again. The last section to do then is operations.